Daniel Parker had learned to ignore stares. As a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, on a mechanic's income, he had grown used to people making quick judgments. They saw grease on his hands, worn-out boots, and a faded flannel shirt, and somehow decided they already knew his whole story. That Saturday morning, Daniel stood in front of an old rust-covered car parked on a quiet suburban street. The vehicle looked terrible. Faded paint, rust patches spreading across the body, flat-looking tires, and an interior that probably smelled like dust and time. Most people wouldn't have looked at it twice. But Daniel wasn't most people. He slowly walked around the car, studying every inch with sharp eyes. His fingers brushed the frame, tapping lightly against the metal. He crouched near the wheel, checking the suspension. Then he looked under the hood. A small smile appeared on his face. The owner, an elderly man named Mr. Harrison, watched him carefully. "You really think this thing's worth buying?" he asked, half amused. Daniel nodded. "Depends on what someone sees." Before Mr. Harrison could reply, a loud laugh cut through the air. A woman in a fitted red dress stood near the sidewalk, holding designer sunglasses in one hand and a car key in the other. She looked at Daniel, then at the rusty vehicle, and burst out laughing again. "Wait," she said, barely containing herself. "You're actually buying that?" Daniel straightened but stayed calm. "Maybe." She shook her head in disbelief. "For how much?" $100. Her eyes widened. Then she laughed even harder. $100? She said loudly. "That's not a car, that's scrap metal." A few neighbors turned to watch. She stepped closer, smirking. "I mean, no offense, but if this is all you can afford, maybe just buy a bicycle." The words were sharp, meant to humiliate. Daniel felt the sting, but he didn't react. Instead, he simply looked at the car again. Because while everyone else saw rust, he saw history. He saw craftsmanship. And buried under decades of neglect, he saw something incredibly rare. Mr. Harrison quietly asked, "You know what this is, don't you?" Daniel's eyes stayed on the car. "Yes," he said softly. The woman rolled her eyes. "Delusional." Daniel reached into his wallet and pulled out a single crisp $100 bill. "Sold?" he asked. Mr. Harrison smiled. "Sold." After buying the car, Daniel drove it home slowly, ignoring the strange looks he got along the way. The engine coughed every few seconds, the steering felt heavy, and the brakes squealed at every stop. To anyone else, it looked like he had wasted his last $100. But Daniel's mind wasn't on the rust or dents. It was on details. That night, after putting Lily to bed, he walked back into his garage with a flashlight, a toolbox, and a notebook. The neighborhood was quiet now. No mocking voices, no laughter, just the sound of metal cooling in the night air. He began with the exterior, carefully brushing away decades of dirt and oxidation. Under the grime, he noticed something unusual near the rear panel, a faded emblem almost completely hidden by rust. His heartbeat slowed. He cleaned around it more gently. The badge became clearer. Daniel stepped back. "No way," he whispered. He had seen that emblem before, years ago in an automotive magazine. This wasn't just an old car. It was a limited production racing model from the late 1960s, one of the rarest builds ever made. Most had been destroyed, modified beyond recognition, or locked away in private collections. And then something else caught his eye. One bolt near the dashboard looked newer than the others. Strange. He opened the driver's side and slid into the cracked leather seat. The cabin smelled of old fabric, oil, and forgotten years. Running his fingers across the dashboard, he noticed a slight gap near the glove compartment. He grabbed a screwdriver and carefully loosened the panel. A small metal plate dropped into his hand. Daniel froze. Engraved on the plate was a serial number, not just any number. Prototype number 3. His pulse raced. He quickly reached for his notebook and compared the number to an old list he had saved years ago. Perfect match. He stared at the plate in silence. The rusted shell parked in his garage wasn't scrap. It was automotive history. And for the first time since buying it, Daniel allowed himself to smile. Now he understood why something about that car had felt different the moment he touched it. For the next 5 days, Daniel told no one what he had discovered. Not Lily, not the neighbors. not even his closest friend from the workshop. He went to work as usual in the mornings, fixing engines and changing brake pads, then returned home and spent his nights in the garage. He didn't try to fully restore the car. He knew better than that. Over-restoration could erase the very history collectors valued. Instead, he focused on preservation. He carefully cleaned the engine bay, documented the serial numbers, and photographed every original component. The more he inspected, the more unbelievable the truth became. Almost everything was original. The transmission, the custom chassis, even the rare hand-built carburetor system was still there. This wasn't just a rare car. It was one of the last untouched prototypes ever found. On the fifth morning, Daniel sent photos and documentation to a well-known classic racing archive. He expected a response in days. Instead, his phone rang within 2 hours. "Is this Daniel Parker?" a deep voice asked. "Yes." There was a pause. "Please tell me you still have that car." Daniel frowned. "I do. Why?" The man exhaled sharply. "My name is Marcus Vale." Daniel nearly dropped his phone. Everyone in motorsport knew that name. Marcus Vale was a retired racing legend, a man who had won championships, broken records, and built one of the world's most respected private car collections. Daniel sat up straighter. "I know who you are." "I'm flying in today," Marcus said. "Send me your address." By evening, a black SUV stopped outside Daniel's house. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Even Vanessa stepped outside, curious. Marcus walked straight into the garage. He said nothing for nearly a minute, simply staring at the rust-covered car. Then, unexpectedly, his eyes became glassy. He reached out and touched the hood like someone greeting an old friend. His voice came out quiet. "My father built this." Daniel froze. Marcus swallowed hard. This prototype disappeared over 40 years ago. People thought it was destroyed. He turned toward Daniel. "Do you understand what you have here?" Daniel gave a small nod. Marcus looked at him and said the words that would leave the entire neighborhood speechless. "I'll pay $5 million for it." Vanessa thought she had misheard. "5 what?" she blurted from the garage entrance, her confident expression suddenly gone. Marcus didn't even look at her. His attention stayed on Daniel. $5 million, he repeated calmly. "And I'm not paying for metal. I'm paying for history." The garage fell silent. Daniel looked at the rust-covered car, the same car everyone had laughed at just 5 days earlier. He remembered the smirks, the whispers, the mocking comments, especially Vanessa's. "Buy a bicycle." The words still echoed in his mind, but strangely he felt no anger now, only clarity. Marcus continued. "My father designed this prototype before his big breakthrough. This car was his obsession. When it disappeared, a piece of our family history disappeared with it." He paused, running his hand over the weathered hood. "You didn't just find a rare car," Marcus said. "You preserved something priceless." Daniel glanced toward Lily, who stood quietly beside him, holding his hand. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. "Dad," she whispered, "are we rich now?" Daniel laughed softly, the kind of laugh that came from relief more than excitement. "Maybe," he said. Vanessa stepped forward, suddenly eager to speak. "Daniel, wow. I always knew there was something special about you." Her voice had changed completely, warmer, sweeter, artificial. Daniel met her eyes. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable. "You laughed at me," he said, not harshly, just honestly. Vanessa lowered her gaze. "I was joking." "No," Daniel replied. "You were judging." She had no answer. After a long silence, Daniel turned back to Marcus. "I'll sell," he said, "but on one condition." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "The car gets restored exactly as your father built it. No unnecessary changes." Marcus smiled, emotion returning to his face. "You have my word." A week later, the money was in Daniel's account. He paid off every debt, bought a modest home, secured Lily's future, and opened his own restoration garage. Years later, whenever Lily asked about that rusty old car, Daniel always gave the same answer. Never laugh at humble beginnings. Some of the greatest treasures arrive disguised as nothing. Moral lesson. People who judge by appearances often miss extraordinary value. Respect, patience, and vision reveal what others cannot see.